So, you've probably seen the name St. Vincent de Paul, right? Maybe on a thrift store or a donation bin. It's a name that we just automatically connect with charity. But what if I told you the story behind that name is, well, it's way more dramatic, more shocking, and honestly more incredible than you could ever imagine? Let's get into it. Because that's really the question at the heart of this story. The man who became the patron saint of all charitable work first had to be captured by pirates and sold into slavery. Yeah, this isn't just a story about being nice to people. It's a story of profound transformation, born from some of the worst suffering you can think of. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it's not in some fancy castle or a wealthy estate. It starts in a tiny village in 16th century France. Our story starts with a young Vincent, born to a really poor peasant family. But this kid was brilliant. I mean, super sharp. So sharp, in fact, that he started tutoring the kids of a local wealthy family. And he used that money to pay his own way through university, studying theology. You can already see he's got this incredible drive, this ambition, right from the get-go. And you can see his progress right here. By 1600, he's only 19 years old, and he's already ordained as a priest. I mean, the guy's on a serious fast track. But then we get to 1605. He takes a sea voyage. And this single trip is the moment his entire world gets turned completely inside out. Everything he had worked for, every plan he had made, was about to be violently, totally ripped away from him. While he was sailing from Marseille, his ship was attacked by pirates. And he was captured. Just like that. He was taken to Tunis, that's in modern-day Tunisia, which was a huge hub for the slave trade back then. And he was sold. Think about that for a second. A French priest is now human property. The life he knew was over. For 2 years, 2 full years, he lived as a slave. Can you even imagine the despair? The feeling that all hope is lost? This number, it represents this period of intense suffering that would change absolutely everything for him. But the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. In this unbelievable turn of events, he actually manages to escape. And get this, he convinces his own master to escape with him and convert to Christianity. So when he finally returns to France, he's not the same ambitious young priest. He's a man who has looked into the abyss of human suffering, and it changed him to his very core. You know, that kind of trauma could easily break a person, but for Vincent, it gave him a brand new radical purpose. He decided he would dedicate the rest of his life to the people that the world had completely forgotten. And this is where his real passion comes to life. See, it wasn't about debating complicated theology anymore. For him, it was about tangible, real-world help. Food, shelter, medicine for the poor, the sick, the imprisoned. He knew what it felt like to have nothing, to be powerless. And he was going to use his freedom to serve those who had none. And his work was so practical. It's amazing. He wasn't just talking. He was building hospitals. He was going into the prisons and ministering to convicts. He founded orphanages and schools. But what's truly mind-blowing is how forward-thinking he was. We're talking about early versions of credit unions, providing bank loans for the poor so they could get back on their feet. This was absolutely revolutionary stuff for the time. But Vincent quickly had this huge realization. One person, no matter how passionate they are, can only do so much. The scale of the poverty he was seeing was just immense. He needed a system. He needed to figure out how to organize compassion itself. He knew he couldn't do it alone. So he basically built an army for charity. He started the Ladies of Charity, getting everyday women involved in helping the poor in their neighborhoods. He created the Vincentians, an order of priests specifically for mission work. And then, with St. Louise de Marillac, he co-founded the Daughters of Charity, a totally groundbreaking group of women who served the poor directly, out on the streets. The man was an organizational genius. So what's the impact of that genius for organization? Well, it's a legacy that has just been echoing for centuries, all across the globe. I mean, the scale of his legacy is hard to wrap your head around. Just think about this. Today, right now, there are nearly 4,000 Vincentian priests carrying on his mission in 86 different countries. That one network he started is still a global force. And if you thought that was a lot, get this. The Daughters of Charity, that order he co-founded, there are over 18,000 of them serving the poor in 94 countries as we speak. It's just this incredible living legacy of hands-on service.
And to really get a sense of the man himself, you've got to see this. It's estimated he wrote over 30,000 letters in his lifetime. 30,000. He was this tireless administrator, a spiritual guide, a motivator, constantly connecting and organizing this huge network. This wasn't a hobby for him. This was his entire life's work. But he wasn't just some guy in an office. He was also deeply grounded. He loved to garden, and this quote from him just reveals so much. For him, charity wasn't just about giving handouts. It was about nurturing the very earth, the foundations of life and community. It shows this really holistic, practical kind of love for humanity. So over time, he earned these titles, the Apostle of Charity and the Father of the Poor. And they're not just fancy honorifics, you know? They are the perfect summary of a life that was completely redefined by suffering and dedicated to service.
And this is where it all comes full circle. Almost 200 years after he died, a French scholar named Frederick Ozanam was so blown away by Vincent's life story that he started a new organization for regular people to serve the poor. And he named it in his honor, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. That's the name you see on the thrift stores today. So the next time you see that name, remember this incredible story. The story of a slave who became a saint, an organizer of compassion whose legacy really challenges us. And it leaves us with a pretty important question, doesn't it? In our world today, with all of its own complex problems, what does it really mean to serve others? And how can we, like Vincent, learn to organize compassion on a massive scale?